In this presentation, we'll be looking at what is a panel, what are we talking about, where are they used, to give you a much clearer indication of the extent of their use at the moment, how you can identify them, what are the current regulatory requirements concerning the panels, and what are the options for their disposal. What is an insulated panel? This is a typical polyurethane panel, similar to the ones which are being handed around the auditorium now. It's PIR core. It is sandwiched between two metal faces. And today we're only going to be talking about metal-faced panels. I'm not talking about panels with other facings. It's the metal-faced panels which we're largely concerned of. And these are the most common in the country. As you can see, they are strong. They are semi-structural units. This type of panel represents about 70% of all panels which are currently out there in use at this moment. And you will find it on roofs and walls, external roofs and walls. You'll find it internally on walls and ceilings. Mineral wool panel. The lamellas are adhesively bonded to the two metal surfaces. It's used for walls, external walls of buildings. It's also used internally for walls, ceilings, and it has been used from time to time in cold stores, although that application is much reduced. Mineral wool panels represent about 5% of panels in use in the marketplace at the moment. Polystyrene. You all know what polystyrene is. There's a piece of it going round. It's the kind of thing that wraps around to the appliances you buy and so on. Two types of polystyrene are in use in panels, the extruded and the expanded. The expanded polystyrene is the most common, and you will find it in most of the old coal stores. Latterly, they've also been making panels with extruded polystyrene, and in total, they amount to about 25% of the panels in use in the country. You'll also find them in the food processing factories as well. And I have no doubt a number of you have been involved in the removal of panels from food processing plants where they've been taken out because of the poor fire performance. Where are they used? A few examples for you. For the Birmingham contingent here, you will recognise this. This is the Cadbury's facility. This is a building, late 80s, early 90s, panels used on roof and wall. It's highly energy efficient, low air leakage type of application. Another type of application, in this case, it's the B1 office attached to a main factory. Horizontal panels. Typical shed. In this case, it's associated with the railways. It could equally be a shed anywhere. It could be of any size. It could be a small nursery unit, or it could be a major industrial production facility. These distribution units have grown and grown over the last few years, and you'll find them everywhere. Every time you go up and down the M1, you'll find them on the side of their Magna Park. All over the place you'll find these. You'll also find panels used in retail parks and so on. These are big facilities. But this type of development is relatively modern. We move internally now. This is what we call box within box. It's panels which are used for the walls, for the ceilings of an environmentally controlled facility. Could be in the electronics industry, it could be in the food industry, it could be anywhere where you require some form of either temperature or hygiene control. Also, it's used in this kind of application, much wider space, but here it's used as wall linings and ceilings. Panels are used throughout now, most construction sectors. There's hardly a construction sector which doesn't have panels used in it. So you are likely to find them anywhere. So in summary, what have we got? We've got panels, they're strong single-piece units. They are fixed to a frame, particularly the external panels. They are fixed firmly to a structural framework because they have to withstand wind forces. Internally, they're often freestanding, but the ceiling panels may be hung from hangers. And the important thing, and that's which affects us, and which we'll be talking about for the rest of this presentation, is that they contain different insulating cores. And it's that insulating core which will determine how a panel may be disposed of at its end of its life. Types of insulation: polyurethane, PUR, polyisocyanate, PIR. Two categories in this. The panels which we currently make, and which we've made since 2004, have a pentane blowing agent and are classed as non-ODS. They are not subject to any regulations with respect to their disposal. Earlier panels were blown with CFC blowing agent. Because of pressures, environmental pressures, we were asked to move in the mid-80s to a non-ODS. We couldn't do it all in one swoop. We moved initially to HCFC, and as soon as possible we moved to a non-ODS. There are huge technical problems, production problems, in moving from one chemical formulation to another. Mineral wool panels, no problem. Mineral wool panels use air as the insulant. Standard waste procedures apply. Polystyrene, again, no specific problems. And to complete the story, there's an insulation called phenolic. Phenolic foam is very rarely used, but it is out there. It's used internally for some internal walls and ceilings. Early phenolics were blown with an ODS blowing agent. Latterly, with a non-ODS blowing agent. So where are we on the regulatory front then? We've got a whole raft of regulations, as you can see. We've got the EEC regulation, we've got landfill regulations, hazardous waste directives, waste incineration directives. The bit which really concerns us is the treatment of panels which have ODS in them. And I remind you that the words from the European Commission say, where practical. The alternative, which is used in some of our sister member states in Europe, is incineration, high temperature incineration. We do not have that facility in the UK. We can't go down that route at this moment of time. Regarding ODS recovery, it's supposed to be recovered where practical. Fridge plants, as you well know, are subject to recovery via, or fridges, via fridge recycling plants. There is no such requirement, there is no legislation to treat construction waste in the same way. But we do have to dispose of things in a responsible manner. So what does the Hazardous Waste Directive actually say? You've seen this clause before. It says that where the hazardous waste is below 0.1% by mass of total waste, then you're okay. Otherwise, it's classed as hazardous waste. And as far as we're concerned, of course, it relates to the PUR and the PIR cores. How big a problem is this? And this is one of the things that's concerned us. There's misinformation on this front. I've done a pie chart here, and this looks at the stock of polyurethane cored panels. On the left-hand side in the blue, you will see that 40% or thereabouts of all panels are non-ODS. No special treatment. On the right-hand side, you've got the two types which have an ODS blowing agent, the CFCs and the HCFCs. So we have to look at these and we have to relate it to that 0.1%. The unfortunate thing we have with panels is that panels are easy to install. So they go up as a single piece unit and they can come down as a single piece unit. In terms of waste, It isn't crushed and it goes back as an amorphous mass to landfill or wherever. It can be identified, individually identified. And therefore, it is most likely to be identified as a hazardous waste, even though as part of a total project, it is below the 0.1%. Even if you look at that right-hand block there, the 60% of polyurethanes, 2/3 of that are actually less than 15 years old. So we're looking at an actual practical life of a polyurethane panel well in excess of 30 years. So 2/3 of the ODS panels currently out there are less than 15-year-olds. You're not going to see them coming into the waste stream until 2025, 2030 and beyond. And then they're going to come gradually. Now we come on to identification. This is the important part. This is the part which affects you, gentlemen, in terms of your quoting for demolition work. How do you know what you're quoting for? How can you be sure? The first thing is it a panel? I can't go into that now because that would take me another 25, 30 minutes to explain the differences and the tips to be able to distinguish between a panel, a site-assembled system. But the information is in the guide. There's 4 pages of tips on how to do that in the guide. The important thing is what type of insulation is it? How can you determine it? There are records for the more recent projects, the CDM records. There are marks on panels as well. We'll be looking at one of those in a minute, but there are marks on the side joint for most manufacturers, not on this one, but there on many panels there are. There are ultraviolet marks on some panels. And of course, if you can get at your panel, you can visually inspect it. About 20 million square meters of panel are UV marked. This is a UV tester. And as you can see from it will light up. The date of this panel was January 2004. And it says it was an LPS certificated panel. I can tell you just looking at that, that is a pentane blown panel and will not be subject to any restrictions. If you want to get hold of one of these, then the Kingspan Group will, if you talk to their customer services, they will provide you with one of these. What we're looking for really in panels is the age. If the panel is after 2004, then it's a non-ODS panel. If it's before 2000, it's a 99% certainty it will have an ODS blowing agent. There's a grey area between 2000 and 2004, and that's the one that we've got to address. What can you do? You can look at records. You can check for pentane. And there are portable pentane detectors, and I'll show you one later on, which are available. Or, as one of your colleagues has done recently, you can actually take a sample and send it to a laboratory, and that will tell you what the blowing agent is. What are the options? We are asked, if possible, to reuse. This is a project, the project on the screen there is a recent project in Ireland where horizontal panels were taken off one building and used on this industrial facility. I'm not going to talk about handling, but there are some guidance pages in the EPIC guide about some of the more recent handling techniques for the easy removal of panels from buildings for reuse. Second option, you have a panel with ODS. We have done a number of trials involving these panels. We have actually done trials with thousands of square meters coming off-site and going through fridge recycling plants. It works. Panels have to be cut to 2-meter lengths and go through in the conventional way. The Metal shreddings are available for recycling. Option 3, conventional shredder. Goes in with standard metal waste. Easiest option. Can be used for the non-ODS panels. There may be options to take the facings off, but generally the whole panel just goes in. One of the myths that's floating around the industry at the moment is that pentane is nasty and that a panel with pentane cannot be processed in a conventional shredder. The amount of pentane is actually very small in panels, and there is no substance to that comment that it's dangerous either to the plant or to the operators. There's a picture there of a pentane detector, a small portable pentane detector. It's connected usually by a tube to a detection device. You can pick that up for a few £100. Information is in the EPIC brochure. Worthwhile doing, particularly for those panels which come into the grey area. The guide gives you the information that we have at this moment of time. It gives you the trials that we've done. It gives you information on where you can pick up detectors. It gives you a whole series of other identification means. It particularly tells you where panels are used. Our aim is to provide you with as much information as we have so that you are as up-to-date as possible. There is a telephone number on the EPIC brochure. A number of you have already spoken to me about specific projects, and we've been very happy to be able to assist you in trying to determine as best we can what you're likely to have in the building which you've been asked to demolish, you've been asked to quote for. That telephone line is open. Please ring it. We are here as an organisation to help. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.